MFDS in Korea has been doing a crackdown on a category of product that I know a lot of our listeners have, if not tried themselves, they've certainly seen it doing the rounds on social media. So let's jump straight into it and have a chat about what's going on. So essentially, Korea's MFDS, which is their Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, they're basically the watchdog or the overseer of everything that goes on in the cosmetics industry in Korea, kind of similar to your FDA in the States or your TGA in Australia. And they have been doing a crackdown on microneedling skincare claims in Korean beauty. So these are one of the latest K-beauty crazes. There are a lot of different products at the moment that are claiming to have microneedling capabilities, and I use that in inverted commas because the results of the crackdown are that these brands, a lot of them, have been doing the wrong thing. So last month, the MFDS identified 82 instances of false and or excessive advertising that violates the Cosmetics Act. And that is the key piece of legislation in Korea that governs what goes on in the industry. So their investigation determined that certain companies, that was the phrasing they used in Korean, the equivalent to it, so I'm going to use it too, have been advertising acupuncture cosmetic ingredients as if they can penetrate the skin's epidermis, like microneedling, the medical procedure, improve the number of pores, which let's just take a second to think about that. That is a wild claim that any product, a skincare product, an ordinary skincare product, can improve the number of pores. I'll continue. Regenerate the skin, and other claims that are outside the scope of cosmetics. So what does this all mean? What this means is that companies that are making these products have basically been going way too far in the advertising of the products, and they're making what is a simple cosmetic product sound like something that it's not, and that is a contravention of the Cosmetics Act, and so they have been pulled up and all of these ads have been removed. The kicker is, though, only in Korean. So I have done a little bit of sleuthing online to see, and I can see that these ads, and they actually came out with a document, the MFDS, and listed what they'd been doing, and then they provided at the end of it examples of the contravening ads, of two examples in particular. And one of the first things that people ask me when I have shared this online is, well, what brand was it? What brands were involved? And the thing is, like I mentioned, the MFDS used the phrase certain companies, and they didn't actually identify the brands. So I'm not going to go ahead and identify any particular brands because I don't want to get sued. However, if you go and have a look at the examples that they included in their briefing document, one of them in particular is very, very identifying as to who one of the brands is, because that product, and if it's the brand and the product that you're thinking of, it's probably that brand. I've got all of this on my social media. You can go and check it out. But if you have a look at the ad and then go away and have a look at the ads for that product that you can find online, you can put two and two together and work out who it is. But basically, all of those ads, what tends to happen is the companies will go out and make them and put them up in Korean, and then they get translated into English, into Chinese, into Vietnamese, into a whole lot of different languages. And I have found replicas of the same ad in pretty much every language online, and all of the people, the distributors and the resellers, they just whack it up on their website, so it's still there, even though the MFDS has pulled all of the ads that they could find in Korea. So essentially, you might be wondering, well, why have they gone this far? What is the deal? What's the problem with that? And I think the thing that it comes down to is that when it is a cosmetic product, so there are two different types of classifications of products usually in most jurisdictions. It will be something like a cosmetic or a skincare product and a drug. In jurisdictions like Australia, it's called a therapeutic good, but basically it's a product that has drug properties or can make drug-like claims. And if it's just a simple skincare product, there's only so far you can go. You can't be making claims that suggest that your product can make physiological changes to the body, because that is not in the nature of a cosmetic, that is in the nature of a drug. And that's essentially what they were saying. They were going, well, number one, that's not actually how your product works. Your product is not offering microneedling. It is not penetrating the dermis. It is not regenerating the skin, nor is it improving the number of pores. These things are all false or excessive. They're going further than what your product can actually do. In reality, these products use silica, and it's basically hardened into the shape of a needle, and it presses against the skin, but it doesn't actually penetrate the dermis. And that's what true microneedling is doing. So, I've had people then say to me, yeah, but no one actually believed that it's real microneedling. That's not the point. The point is, number one, why advertise it like that in the first place? If it's not real microneedling, why call it microneedling in a bottle? And number two, do you think that these brands and products would have got the viral fame that they have reached today and made how many of millions of sales that they have made if they hadn't included the false claims in their advertising? That is the real kicker, right? That is why they're trying to stop this kind of advertising, because it's not a true reflection of what the product actually does in the first place. It's misleading to customers, and it's just going too far. Your product doesn't do that. Why not just stick to what it can actually do and talk about the things that it can actually do, rather than trying to liken it to a medical procedure? And the answer is obvious. The answer is because that got a lot more attention than calling it what it actually is. The little silica pieces that are fashioned into the shape of a needle are called spicules. So the accurate way to advertise these products would probably be spicule skincare. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it. And I guess the companies figured that out, and they were like, we need something a lot more catchy, something, that tells you, to go out and buy this product immediately. Microneedling, it's kind of stings like microneedling. Let's just run with that and call it that. So that is, I guess, what has been going on. And I would be interested to see if any of the overseas regulatory bodies pull the same ads or make any comments about the ads that have been replicated into other languages. Now, I do not expect Australia's TGA to do anything, because they are useless when it comes to stuff like this. They seemingly never pull anyone up for these kind of ads that go too far, particularly when it comes to cosmetics. You'll see brands, influencers, even journalists making claims that just cannot be made, that contravene the legislation in Australia all the time, and nothing ever happens to them. It's very frustrating to see, because, there are, of course, a subset of brands that do the right thing, that spend a lot of time, money, effort on compliance, remaining compliant and doing the right thing. And then there are a whole bunch of other brands that either don't care, don't know, or just, are happy to sort of muddle along until someone pulls them up for it. And in Australia, you just never seem to get pulled up for it. The FDA is not quite like that. They are taking all of this stuff a lot more seriously. They have introduced new legislation that came into effect called MOCRA, and they are actually cracking down on this. One of the things that I've seen in particular is Amazon has pulled a lot of non-compliant listings for products that are not allowed to be sold in the States, including a lot of Korean sunscreens. You will notice that certain brands have had their sunscreens pulled from Amazon, and so they're now coming out and saying, oh, if you buy it on Amazon, it's probably going to be a fake. That's because Amazon has basically stepped in and told them, no, you're not allowed to keep selling this product. We actually had the same thing happen to a couple of our Jellicoe products. What happened was the FDA stepped in and sort of said, can you provide additional documentation they wanted documents for our Dewy Glaze Toner to make sure it wasn't a whitening product, which it's not. So we went back to the lab, had all of the tests redone, and the lab provided us with reports, which we then had to give to Amazon to show them that our product was what it says it was and wasn't, a whitening product, because that's another thing that falls under the definition of a drug, really, depending on the kinds of claims that it's being made. So then Amazon took a look at our documents. They were like, yep, you're fine. And they relisted the product, but it was off for a couple of months while we went through this whole process. So they are doing that. They are cracking down on a lot of these kind of things. So I will be interested to see if any of the overseas regulatory bodies actually do make any moves to stop these kind of claims being replicated overseas, because it's true that all of these claims would also fall foul of the FDA's regime as well. Like making comments about it being able to improve the number of pores, none of that flies in under the American regime either, nor under the Australian regime. But these are the kind of things that people have been saying to advertise these products. So I thought that that was interesting. I thought that our listeners would be wanting to hear about things like this. So that is the bombshell piece of news that I have for you.